Father Robert Lauder, a priest of the Diocese of Brooklyn, professor of philosophy at St. John's University. I am very excited about this course on the Catholic novel. This course is extremely personal to me in terms of my life and my interest right now. I'm going to try to open this with kind of an overview. And I hope in this overview you'll get a sense of why I think this is so, the Catholic novels are so valuable, and that I'm hoping they're no longer a hidden treasure, that more and more Catholics become aware of the existence of these, because several times in my life I have been stunned when I've met people who studied in Catholic universities and never even heard of these novels. I don't know what's going on. I don't understand that at all. So here's the overview I want to present. I want to just say a couple of words about revelation and faith. For most of my life, I had a rather narrow view of revelation and a narrow view of faith. I thought of both of them largely in intellectual terms, largely in knowledge terms. Here's what I mean. I thought of revelation as God sending down a message that gave us the answers to all of life's problems and all of life's mysteries. When I was in grammar school, I probably thought the revelation was like a catechism, a set of answers. When I got to college, I got a little bit more sophisticated. I probably thought that revelation was a theology textbook, but it was largely a set of answers, okay? And that faith then was some gift that God gave us to accept these answers, to embrace these answers, to believe in these answers. So both revelation and faith involved largely knowledge. Okay, I no longer think that. I think revelation is much more wonderful than God sending down a catechism or a theology textbook. And I think faith is much more exciting than memorizing a set of answers. So what is revelation? I would suggest to you revelation is this. Revelation is God's gracious self-disclosure. In other words, God does not have to do this. Why does God do it? I would just say out of love. So revelation is God's gracious self-disclosure and invitation to human persons to enter into an intimate love relationship with God. This invitation comes to us in many ways. It comes to us through the church. It comes to us through the Bible. It comes to us through preaching. It can come to us through our family. It can come to us through books we read. I happen to think it can come to us through history, through personal experience, and in an ultimate way, of course, it comes to us through Jesus Christ. So my own view is it also comes to us, it can come to us through art, through painting, through theater, through movies, through literature. And that's why I'm so excited about this course on the Catholic novel. I really believe that God can touch people deeply if they read Catholic novels. And of course, the only evidence I can give for that is, I think, in my own life, they've played an enormous role, a really important role. Okay, so we're going to deal with a number of novels. Now, my experience of the Catholic novel goes back to high school. When I was a senior at Xavier High School in the city, Jesuit high school, I had a wonderful professor of English, a Jesuit priest who my hope and belief is he is now with God, who had the whole class read a novel called Brighton Rock by Graham Greene. I had never heard of the novel Brighton Rock. I had never heard of Graham Greene. As a matter of fact, I had never heard the term a Catholic novel. And when I read Brighton Rock, it was a tremendous revelation to me. Here was a novel about a gangster. So on one level, it was a kind of a gangster, kind of a thriller. But on another level, and this was the more important level, it was about Catholicism and God pursuing the sinner. I didn't know there were any books like this. So this had a tremendous impact on me. After I graduated from high school, I continued to read Graham Greene in college, read Francois Mauriac, read Evelyn Waugh, read a number of Catholic novels, and loaned them to friends of mine. And the universal experience was that every single person, and they'd all gone to Catholic colleges, they didn't know there were novels like this. I can still remember now. I remember the excitement when we talked about these books. So that goes back a long way. That goes back to the time I was just out of high school. But even more recently, I'm going to say maybe 30 years ago, I was talking to a teacher at a very prestigious Catholic high school that had all very, very bright students. And I asked him what he was doing in English literature. He said he was having the students read Ernest Hemingway, F. Scott Fitzgerald, and William Faulkner. Now, that's tremendous. I mean, that's wonderful. But I said to him, have you ever thought of giving a course on the Catholic novel? And immediately, without even pausing, he said no. It was like the closing of a book, you know. And later I wondered why he responded so quickly and so definitely. And here's what I think. I think he thought a Catholic novel would be too parochial, too narrow. Of course, I believe it's the exact opposite. There is nothing deeper and broader than Catholic faith. And so a novel that captures that depicts that dramatizes that, tells us the most profound things about human nature. P.S. I never did persuade him to do it, but a little bit later, I had another experience like that. I met a graduate of a Catholic college, majored in English, not only had never read Graham Greene or Evelyn Waugh, had never heard of them. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I couldn't figure this out at all. How you could major in English in a Catholic college and not hear of this, okay? So I volunteered to do a course at St. John's University. It was philosophy and literature. But the literature I chose was 8 Catholic novels. And everyone who has ever taken it, they didn't know there were novels like this. They had never read any of these novels. Probably most of them had never heard of any of these novels. So on that level, it was a real success. Then I thought that the students at St. John's were so enthusiastic, I started an adult education program on the Catholic novel. When did I start it? I'm guessing now, maybe 30 years ago. But in that time, the students in the adult education program and I have read or reread over 150 Catholic novels. As a matter of fact, right now, I cannot think of a Catholic novel that we did not read in this course, okay? Now, anyone who has taken the course all these years has had a tremendous experience of great literature, and I hope a deepening of Catholic faith. So if God's revelation is taking place all the time, and it is, it's not just 2,000 years ago. As a matter of fact, if God's revelation is not taking place during this television program, I'm wasting my time and you're wasting your time. It's constant. This invitation from God is constant. God doesn't change his mind and withdraw the invitation. No, the invitation is there all the time. And who gets invited? Everybody. Everybody. Not just Catholics. Protestants are invited. Jewish people are invited. Hindus, Buddhists, members of Islam, agnostics, atheists. God's love reaches out to everyone. Now, as a Catholic, I can perhaps identify some of the times I was aware of God's revelation. And looking back, I think often, who can be certain of this? I think God touched me through reading Catholic novels. And that's the other reason I'm so excited about this, okay? To underline the importance of it and the power of a Catholic novel, I want to appeal to a book called Faith, Sex, and Mystery by Richard Gilman. I recommend it to all of you. Richard Gilman's background was he was a secular Jew, probably an agnostic. If not an atheist, probably an agnostic. And for some strange reason, he walked one day into the 42nd Street Library in Manhattan, and he was browsing, and he saw a book called The Spirit of Medieval Philosophy, and he took it down, took it home, and stayed up all night reading it. And he claims in the book that by morning he was a Catholic. What he meant, of course, was he had been intellectually converted. The book is written by Ep1 Gilson, and when I was in the seminary, it was a very popular book. I mean, many of us read it. So he goes to see a priest, and aware that Gilman was a voracious reader, the priest said, here are some novels that may interest you. Some people are very excited about them. I don't think much of them. And he handed Gilman Graham Greene's The Power and the Glory, and then eventually Gilman read Catholic novel after Catholic novel. But here's what he said about The Power and the Glory, which we're going to talk about in this course. He said it was the first contemporary novel he read which took sin seriously. And he then makes this, in the book he says, reading these Catholic novels, God was a character in them. That's how real they were for him. So he becomes a Catholic, and then in the book he tells, he's not very clear on this, but he ran into some sexual problems that weren't handled in confession, or at least not to his satisfaction, stopped receiving the sacraments, and eventually claimed to have lost the faith completely. He says that now that I'm no longer a believer, that I am totally secular, when I reread these novels, the weakest parts of them are the religious parts. Now, I wish, Gilman, I hope, is in heaven, okay? If I had ever met him, I would have said to him, if you take the religious parts out, there is no novel. That's what the drama is all about. It's the drama of God and human person. So one of the common themes in a Catholic novel is God as the Hound of Heaven. The Hound of Heaven, the poem by Francis Thompson. I fled him down the nights and down the days. I fled him down the labyrinthine ways of my own mind. So Francis Thompson, who apparently committed every sin conceivable, pictures God pursuing him. And that's a common theme in the Catholic novels. I think it's the theme in Brideshead Revisited. I think it's the theme in Power and the Glory. Now, I've been using the word Catholic novel. What do I mean by that? By a Catholic novel, I mean a novel whose theme is related to some Catholic dogmatic teaching, or some Catholic moral teaching, or some Catholic sacramental or liturgical principle, and the mystery of Catholicism is treated favorably. Now, that last phrase I just used, the mystery of Catholicism is treated favorably. That does not mean every Catholic in the novel is a saint. It doesn't mean that every priest in the novel is an attractive human being, okay? It means the mystery of Catholicism is treated favorably. So in Brighton Rock, the main character, is a gangster, okay? So as I say, I'm excited about it. If you possibly can, read the novels as we go along. I'll try to be careful not to, tell you the endings and spoil them for you. But I think if you want to really take this course seriously, that's the way to do it. Read along with me. I'm really looking forward to this.